Notable Blue Jays reporter Shai Davidi has revealed their trade deadline plans, and he has some interesting things to say about who they're going to trade and why they're not going to trade them. So the Jays don't want to trade their blue chip prospects. They're going to aim more in the mid tier when it comes to their top 30. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. I want to thank each and every one of you for the support that we've gotten on all of these videos. It's been unbelievable. The trade deadline is just a couple of days away, and we have you covered every step of the way. So thanks again for all your support. And Nick, this is just craziness. I mean, I don't see the Jays making any blockbuster moves. I can't see that reality sinking in, but I do see them making some minor moves and definitely a few additions before August 1st.
Yeah, the fun part about the deadline every year is that you never really know, and we didn't know that, it's teams like we discussed in yesterday's video, the Mets and other teams like that were selling until a couple of days ago, and obviously that they are, the market's starting to heat up heavy. Make sure you subscribe before we get into the video. Very close to 7,500. Your support's been unbelievable, but let's get into what we're talking about here today, and this is from Reddit. It's basically, summarizing a Blake Murphy, I believe, show. Shai Davidi came on there and said that he doesn't see the Blue Jays trading Aurelvis Martinez or Ricky Tiedemann due to their ceilings, but he mentions Leo Jimenez as someone on the verge of a promotion, but there's not enough reps to go around, so he's a logical trade piece. So a lot to break down here. Obviously, it's not some crazy, blockbuster thing he said, but if you kind of read between the lines a little bit, like you said in the intro, Peter, maybe a blockbuster deal doesn't seem likely on the table right now because I agree with them. Aurelvis Martinez has been absolutely mashing, and he's only going to continue, if he continues this pace, to skyrocket up those rankings. And Ricky Tiedemann's been hurt, but he's a dominant piece as well. What are your thoughts on this little tidbit of information, as well as the Leo Jimenez one, which, AAA infield is pretty loaded, so there's not much playing time to go around. So I think a trade is due either way.
Yeah. Unless there's a game-changing piece out there on the market, like Juan Soto or someone of that nature, then you don't trade those blue chip prospects or like a Brian Reynolds or something like that. Someone that really moves the needle for your team, you don't trade unless it's one of those guys. Now, Ricky Tiedemann and Aurelvis Martinez, they're very close to the major leagues. They're not too far away, maybe one or two more seasons. So that's why the Jays are definitely hell-bent on holding on to them. And after this season, you got a big question mark at third base. Is it going to be Addison Barger? Is it going to be Aurelvis Martinez? Is Matt Chapman going to re-sign with the team? I'm sure the Jays are preparing for all of these different scenarios. So that's why they want to hold on to these blue chip prospects. Ricky Tiedemann, you got to up his workload a little bit, but he's not too far away from the major leagues. So his stuff is there. He's ready to go in a little bit. So you want to hold on to those guys. But can you really swing a blockbuster type of player with a guy like Leo Jimenez as the headliner? I don't think so. Or someone like Yasser Zulueta. Those guys won't get you the return that your number two and number one prospects will, but they can definitely get you someone in return and someone that'll give some immediate help to your major league club. So we'll see some of those names soon, but yeah, definitely interesting. I think the Jays are going to be more conservative this deadline, but they'll definitely make a couple of moves.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of crazy. We're talking about Aurelvis Martinez now as one of the blue chip prospects of the Blue Jays, when only a few months ago at the start of the season, he was kind of considered a lost cause. But that's what it's like with prospects. And it's interesting you mentioned, a guy like Juan Soto. And a report came out just yesterday saying that the Padres are listening to trade offers on Juan Soto, Josh Hader, and Blake Snell. Now, this came out, I believe, after the Shai Davidi thing, but he's tuned in anyway. He probably knew this. Some people are saying that if the Jays could, swing in a trade for, let's say you trade Aurelvis Martinez, Addison Barger, and Ricky Tiedemann, or two of those three, whatever it would take to get a Blake Snell and Josh Hader in one package. Peter, would you be interested in a potential trade like that? A full, swing for the fences, go all in, but you shore up your bullpen even more. You shore up your starting rotation even more, adding probably one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in baseball this year. And then you maybe go out and trade one other prospect for a Tommy Pham like we discussed yesterday. Then the Blue Jays are set to win the World Series. Is it that easy?
It's not that easy. I wish it were that easy, because the last time the Jays went all in like that, they brought in Troy Tulowitzki, they brought in David Price, and they still didn't win the World Series. But you got to go for it at some point. And I think this is the year where the AL is pretty wide open. The Astros aren't as dominant as they used to be. The Yankees aren't really one of the top teams in the league anymore. So if there's ever a year to go for it, this might be the year. Your pitching has performed really well. If you can add to that even more with Blake Snell and Josh Hader, why not go ahead and do it? I'd love to hold on to Ricky Tiedemann. I'd love to hold on to Aurelvis Martinez as well, but they're not helping the Major League Ball Club right now. And that's the most important part when you're looking at an organization as a whole. You got to help that Major League team, and then you worry about the prospects later. So if you can get rid of one of those two and add on a Barger or someone else to that trade, then I'll do it in a heartbeat. I might even consider it with Ricky Tiedemann and Aurelvis Martinez straight up. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree if you're going to go for it. And it's a good point about the AL East. The Yankees aren't the juggernaut they used to be, despite, even if Aaron Judge is healthy, they're not the team they used to be. It's kind of wide open. Obviously, their Jays are around 6 or 7 games back. I'm not sure the exact number of the Orioles. And the Orioles, phenomenal team, but they don't seem, as of right now, to be that team that, the Yankees once were leading the AL East, or even the Blue Jays back in 2015. So it is open to a degree. That being said, the Orioles could go out and kind of make this video kind of funny by trading for Josh, Hader or Juan Soto. They could probably do whatever they want.
They can. Yeah,
But
they
this
can.
would
Yeah.
be the time for the Blue Jays to go in, stop some other teams from getting them. But it doesn't seem like that is too likely, because I think this front office, compared to Alex Anthopoulos back in 2015, is a bit more conservative with their players, and rightfully so to a degree. Again, a lot of the internal stuff for the Blue Jays is what's going to make the difference this year with, Vladdy, even Dalton Varsho to a degree, and other players. George Springer's not getting any younger, like you said. But I don't know. I'd be interested in a big trade for them. It would make for some more fun. But that being said, our farm system is it's starting to get better, but it's pretty thin as is. And just touching on this quickly, Peter, and you can give me some thoughts on any players here you think that the Jays could potentially target. I'm sure we'll have videos on it in the future. This is John Heyman's percentage of the players, percentage chance that they get moved this deadline. Any names jump out to you here? You have Jimmy Candelario at 90, Jordan Montgomery at 80, the link to the Jays as well. And then you have Bellinger and Stroman. Maybe a Stroman reunion might cost a bit less than, well, definitely will, than a Blake Snell type. But any players here jumping off the screen at you before we wrap up?
Eduardo Rodriguez is someone that definitely stands out to me. He's having a great year with Detroit right now, and obviously he battled some injuries early on in the year. But just Nick, when we look at the American League as a whole, it's not top heavy. There's just a bunch of really good teams up and down that line. There's probably 8 really good teams in the American League, but there's no one that you look at and say, "Wow, they're going to run away with the league and they're going to cakewalk to the World Series." So that's why, even though the Jays have struggled and they haven't looked their best at times this year, this might be it. This might be the time for them to just put all their chips in the middle of the table and go for it. I think they should.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like you said, the NL is a bit of a different story. They obviously have the Dodgers, and you can make the argument for the Astros, but they haven't been the same
The
team this
Braves
year.
and
Braves as well,
yeah.
obviously the big one. But the Astros, they have Jordan Alvarez coming back, Jose Altuve, but who knows how healthy and good they'll be the rest of the season. But if there's ever a time for the Blue Jays to do it, go out and make a big trade for players like this, or even someone like Marcus Stroman. Kind of hedge your bets halfway there with Marcus Stroman. But that'll wrap up the video. The rumors continue. I'm sure we'll have another video for you guys sometime today, because the rumors are continuing to flow, and it's a very exciting time to be a Blue Jays fan. And this will all be over in a few days, and we'll kind of have our roster set up for what the Jays will be having for October and so on. But that'll wrap up the video. Thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.